It happened on a night no one expected. A glittering film gala in London, cameras flashing, champagne glasses clinking, the air thick with celebrity polish. Jamie Dornan had just finished presenting an award when, out of nowhere, he paused, adjusted the microphone, and said something that froze the entire room. "Before I leave the stage," he began, his voice steady but heavy, "I want to say something that's been on my mind for a long time. To Dakota, I'm sorry. If I ever made you feel unappreciated, or if I ever let our friendship become misunderstood. I'm sorry. You deserved better than silence." The audience went completely still. Some smiled, thinking it was a joke. Others glanced around, whispering in disbelief. But Jamie's face wasn't smiling. His expression was sincere. Vulnerable in a way that made even strangers hold their breath. Cameras captured every second. Within minutes, the clip was online, and by morning, it had gone viral. The headlines hit like a storm. Jamie Dornan apologizes to Dakota Johnson, in front of everyone. Amelia Warner reportedly furious after Jamie's unexpected speech. Social media erupted. Fans of the 50 Shades franchise flooded the internet with theories. Was it guilt, regret, unfinished love, or just a man finally seeking closure? But inside the quiet walls of the Dornan home, it was not trending hashtags or gossip that mattered. It was the sound of Amelia Warner's silence. When Jamie returned home that night, she was waiting. She wasn't shouting, she wasn't crying. She was sitting at the kitchen table, arms crossed, eyes calm but unreadable. A single news headline was glowing on her phone screen beside her. "Tell me it was taken out of context," she said softly. Jamie sighed, setting down his coat. "It wasn't. I meant what I said." Her expression barely changed, but the flicker in her eyes did, a mix of disbelief and pain. "You apologized to her," she said slowly. "In public, but not to me. Not for bringing her back into our lives again." He hesitated. It wasn't about bringing her back. It was about finally letting go. Amelia looked away, exhaling sharply. "You think the world will see it that way?" Jamie didn't answer. He knew they wouldn't. He poured himself a glass of water, but his hand trembled slightly. "I didn't plan to say it," he confessed. "It just came out. I've carried that guilt for years, Amelia. We went through something intense, Dakota and I, we both did. I owed her that honesty." Her voice broke slightly, though she fought to keep it steady. "And what about what you owe me? The woman who watched people write stories about you two for almost a decade? The one who stayed quiet every time your name and hers were dragged through the mud?" Jamie put down the glass. "I know what you've carried. That's why I did it, to end it, finally." Amelia shook her head. "You think an apology ends it? Jamie, all you did was open the door again." For the first time that night, he had no reply. News outlets around the world dissected every word of his speech. Entertainment anchors replayed the clip with dramatic music. "It was emotional," one said. "It felt like closure, or confession." Dakota's fans praised his courage. Amelia's fans called it betrayal. And amid it all, Dakota Johnson herself remained completely silent. But behind the scenes, she had seen the clip. Someone on her team had sent it immediately. Watching Jamie's face on that stage, she didn't smile. She didn't roll her eyes. She just whispered, almost to herself, "He finally said it." Meanwhile, Amelia faced the part the public would never see, the quiet humiliation of being made part of a story she had never asked for. Friends close to her said she felt blindsided, disrespected, and, worst of all, tired. She had endured years of whispers, Jamie and Dakota's chemistry, Jamie and Dakota's secret bond, Amelia's patience. But through all of it, she had chosen dignity. And now, with one unscripted sentence, Jamie had reopened every wound she had worked so hard to heal. That night, when Jamie went to bed, the silence between them felt heavier than any argument. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, hearing her breathing beside him, slow, measured, distant. He knew what the world thought, that his apology was a declaration, that old feelings were resurfacing. But they were wrong. It wasn't about romance. It was about regret. The kind that sits quietly in the chest for years, whispering that something was left unfinished. Still, as he closed his eyes, Jamie knew that no one, not even Dakota, would ever pay the price of that apology more than Amelia. And as the headlines kept multiplying, one question hung in the air like smoke, impossible to escape. Did Jamie Dornan just make peace with his past, or risk his present to do it? The morning after the apology, the world looked different for everyone involved. For fans, it was a story of redemption. For the press, it was a scandal reborn. But for Amelia Warner, it was something else entirely, a deep, pulsing ache that wouldn't fade. Jamie woke to a quiet house. The kind of quiet that doesn't mean peace, but distance. Amelia was already up, sitting in the garden with a blanket around her shoulders and her phone in her lap. The morning sun brushed her hair with gold, but her eyes were far away, locked on a screen full of headlines she didn't want to read. He stepped outside carefully, unsure if his voice would make things worse. "You've seen it all," he said softly. She nodded without looking up. "I don't think there's anything left not to see." Jamie sat across from her, the air thick with everything that hadn't been said. "Amelia, I didn't mean to hurt you." She let out a tired breath. "You didn't mean to, but you did. Do you have any idea what it feels like to watch the man I love apologize to another woman on stage, while I'm at home, finding out like everyone else?" Jamie winced. It wasn't about her, Amelia. It was about me. About clearing something I'd carried for years. Her gaze was steady now. "You didn't need to do it publicly." "I know," he admitted. "But maybe I needed to do it honestly." The words hung in the air. Honesty. The same thing that had always been his strength on screen and his weakness off it. He leaned forward, his voice lower. "I spent years pretending that everything was fine between Dakota and me. That the tension, the misunderstandings, the hurt, didn't exist. But I was wrong. I hurt her when I shut her out after the films. She thought I regretted all of it, even our friendship. And I couldn't let that version of me be the last thing she remembered." Amelia listened in silence. Her jaw clenched slightly, but she didn't interrupt. "And what about me?" she asked finally. "Do I just have to accept that your honesty means reopening every old wound?" Jamie's voice softened. "No, it means closing them, properly, this time." But Amelia wasn't convinced. She stood and walked toward the railing, her blanket slipping slightly. "You talk about closure," she said, her tone trembling between anger and sorrow. "But closure isn't found in apologies to the past. It's in the choices you make for the present. And yesterday, you chose to make peace with her instead of protecting me." He followed her, slowly. "Amelia. Don't," she said, her voice quiet but sharp. "I know you mean well. But sometimes, even good intentions can feel like betrayal." Jamie stopped a few feet away. There were no defenses left in him, just the weight of what she said. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Dakota Johnson was facing her own whirlwind. The apology clip had taken over every entertainment channel. When her publicist asked if she wanted to respond, she simply said, "Not yet." That evening, she posted a single message on Instagram. No caption. Just a black and white photo of the ocean with the words written over it. "Forgiveness doesn't need an audience." It went viral instantly. Fans praised her grace. Others said it was aimed directly at Amelia. The debate raged, but Dakota didn't comment again. Later that week, Jamie released a short written statement through his representative. "Sometimes closure is overdue. I spoke from a place of gratitude, not nostalgia. Amelia is my home, my peace, and the person I choose every day." It didn't silence the gossip, but it softened it. For the first time since that night, Amelia read his statement and felt something crack, not anger, but relief. She looked at him later that evening, still guarded but calmer. "Gratitude, not nostalgia," she repeated quietly. "I hope that's true." Jamie nodded. "It is. You're my present, Amelia. You've always been." He reached for her hand. For a moment, she let him hold it, though her fingers were cold. Then prove it, she whispered. Days passed. The media frenzy began to fade. Dakota continued her press tour, deliberately avoiding questions about Jamie. Amelia slowly returned to her music, spending long hours at the piano. Jamie stopped accepting interviews entirely. The world moved on, but something between them had changed. Not broken, not ruined, but transformed. One evening, as they sat together watching their daughters play, Amelia finally spoke again. "I don't want to keep living in the shadow of your past," she said. Jamie nodded. "Then let's step out of it, together." She looked at him, eyes softening. "Just don't look back this time." He smiled faintly. Never again. The apology that had once shaken their marriage became, strangely, the moment that redefined it. Because in the quiet that followed, after the anger, after the hurt, both of them realized that love isn't about never making mistakes. It's about what you do after you've made them. For Jamie, that meant letting go of ghosts. For Amelia, it meant learning that forgiveness doesn't always sound like surrender. And for Dakota, it meant understanding that closure can exist without conversation. When the cameras turned away and the world stopped watching, three people finally found peace. Not in the headlines, but in the silence that came after.